Ozzie is a white miniature Schnauzer. He is a good boy. He's about 8 years old. I've been grooming him since he was a tiny puppy. And we are, first of all, I had to make sure he was completely dry and completely brushed. It's very important or these feathers are not going to be pretty. You have to blow dry him and brush him at the same time, everywhere. That gets out all the tangles and dries the hair and makes him fluffy. That has to be done. The first thing I like to do with the Schnauzer, and I don't know why, it's just the first thing I always do, is I put a number 40 blade on, and I do the feet. Don't know why, but I always start with the feet. Now Ozzie's feet are nice and hairy, as you can see. And we're going to take that number 40 blade, and thank you for letting me turn your leg, Ozzie. And we're going to scoop out all that hair. Now Ozzie's hair happens to be orange on his feet and his legs because Ozzie chews his feet and his legs. He licks them. But you get all the hair out, make it nice and neat over there. Sometimes you have to turn his foot in an odd way, and you have to turn my hand in an odd way. Now, if you have a dog with severe arthritis, of course, you don't want to turn his foot that way. You want to find another way to do it, like under here. Then we're going to turn him around. Good. I'll try to turn him around. We're going to do his back piece. Get all that hair off. Now, since Ozzie's an inside dog, I can scoop all the hair out of his pads and not worry about it. If he was an outside dog and went in the woods a lot, I would want to leave the hair in the middle of the pad. You know, I wouldn't want to scoop it out completely naked because then he wouldn't have any protection against stones and sticks and things like that. Now, the other thing that I do with the number 40 is the inside of his ears. The inside of his ears are still a tiny bit damp, so I'm not going to mess with them right now. Instead, I'm going to take a number 7F, and I always start on the back end of a Schnauzer. And when you have a Schnauzer, you want to cut him or her to where it shows off this big, nice, pretty muscle right here, and this nice muscle that they've got right here. So you're going to follow a line, and that line's going to go all the way up, back down again. So, Ozzie, who doesn't want to turn. Okay. Now the hair back here grows funny. It grows in different directions. You want to go against the hair. So I'm going to go against the hair by going down right here. So then I'm going to turn my clipper and go up because that's the way the hair goes. Now the tail, don't cut it right now. Leave it till last. And the reason is you got to have something to hang on to when you're getting all this hair cleaned up back here. You got to have that hair right there to hang on to. So you lift up right there, and now that I've got all this nice and clean back here, then I can go ahead and cut the hair and tip of his tail. If you don't have a handle there, you have a really hard time getting it. So we're going to go against the hair, against the grain, with a 7F. We're going to show off that nice, pretty muscle. The last thing you want to do on a Schnauzer is give him a hula skirt. A lot of people just cut straight across right here, and they leave all this poofy hair on the bottom, and it makes them look like they have a hula skirt on. And it looks ridiculous to me. Some people may like it like that, but I like a Schnauzer to look nice and sleek and muscular. We're going to go up here. Again, we're going against the grain of hair. And in certain spots, the Schnauzer's hair grows all different ways. Right here, Ozzie's hair is growing down. Here, his hair is growing back. So just make sure you're going against the grain. That gives it a nice, short appearance, and it makes it even all over. And we're going to go all the way up to to his ear. But right here, his hair turns on you and starts growing that way. So you're going to go that way. Okay. We got this side done pretty well. The skirt isn't quite even. I'll go back around it, get a little more, and later I'll show you how to taper it and make it look really pretty. Now we're going to do his chest. Schnauzer has a line, just kind of like an upside down V on their chest. Again, you're showing off those muscles right there. And you'll see, if you ever see a Schnauzer standing out in the middle of the yard or in a field or whatever, and he's looking at something, these muscles they just really look very handsome if you can see them. So now we're going to go down because the hair's growing up. Now we're going to go up because the hair's growing down. I'm going to follow that line. This is a line that I made on Ozzie 8 years ago. But you can make a line on a Schnauzer that's never even been groomed. Just start up here and work your way down so that you'll make sure that your line is right. If you mess up a little bit, it does grow back. It grows back very fast. Every now and then you'll get a Schnauzer that has real thin hair. If you do not want to use a 7F on that Schnauzer because it will make his hair look bald. Instead, you'll want to use a 5F or even a 4F. The larger the number, the shorter the cut. But you always want to use a blade ending in F because F means finishing blade, and that gives you your pretty, smooth appearance. And the teeth are closer together, so there's a less chance of cutting the dog if you have an F. Okay, for his head, now Schnauzer, I tell people when they buy Schnauzers from me, get them used to letting you grab them by the snout, by the hair, by the mustache. Don't tease them, don't pull their hair, but get them used to being handled because the groomer has to handle them on their head. And the prettiest part of a Schnauzer is his mustache and his eyebrows. And if he won't let you hold him like this, you can't get a pretty mustache and pretty eyebrows. So we're going to go down his head with the number 7. Notice I'm holding the eyebrows down. We're making a V on top of his head. Those eyebrows are down. I don't want to cut his eyebrows off. If you have a dog that's jerking around and acting silly, turn the vacuum off. Turn the vacuum off and just do it like this. Because if Ozzie was to jump now, I'd just make a little boo-boo. If he jumped when I had that vacuum on, I'd take a whole eyebrow off. And you don't want to do that. Only problem is when you don't use your vacuum, your blades get hot. And they get hot pretty fast. Plus you get hair everywhere. So I like the vacuum. Between his eyebrows, I'm going to cut out just a tiny little bit. And that just makes it where he can see. If he was a show dog and we were going to put him in a fancy show, we would make his eyebrows really long and bushy, and we probably wouldn't have cut out that little V there. But Ozzie has beautiful eyes, and we want to be able to see them. So I've gone all over his body with a 7F, all the way up to his ears. Went between his ears, did his head. Now we're going to use on his head a number 10, or you can use number 15.
Mom, pause real quick.
Right, you can use a 10 or a 15. I happen to have a 10 right now. A 10 is an all-around blade to use for everything. A 15 is beautiful also. It just cuts a little bit shorter. I use a 15 on a lot of Schnauzers. I'm going to use a 10 today because that's what I already have on the table. I'm going to get Ozzie's tummy. He's mighty hairy down there. Now, I don't want to cut any of this fringe. If you're afraid of this vacuum, you may want to turn it off to do the tummy. Now, I know that I know just where to go not to cut that fringe. But if I was worried about it, I would turn the vacuum off and make sure that I didn't cut any fringe. Again, this blade's going to get hot very fast because it's moving real fast. And we do not want to burn Ozzie's tummy because it will itch him very badly. So, I'm going to turn the vacuum back on. Now, this number 10 blade cannot cut Ozzie. The teeth are very close together. They are not going to cut him unless there's a tooth that's broken. And there's not a tooth that's broken on this blade. So it is perfectly safe to be working around his little delicate area. Now I'm going to lift up a leg and get right here. Now Ozzie has been neutered, but if he was to still have testicles, you would be very, very, very careful getting the hair around them. In fact, I don't even touch the blades of testicles because that skin is just so sensitive that you just barely skim it, or even use scissors. Very sensitive. Okay, now since I just went around his tail area, I'm gonna clean this blade before I put it on his face. I'm gonna disinfect it, get any hair off of it. And I'm going to go down his nose. If he was a show schnauzer, we wouldn't go down his nose. We'd let it grow. But again, he has beautiful eyes, and we can't see them if this hair is grown too long. I'm going to scoop out right here. I got around his little tear ducts. You know, got it clean right there. Now, on a salt and pepper schnauzer, their color tells you where to cut. You know, they're salt and pepper right here, and or they're pepper here and salt here. Since Ozzie's white, we kind of have to guess where to cut. Now Ozzie has, and all dogs do, this little mole right in here that's got little coarse hairs coming out of it, and that's kind of a guideline of where to cut. If you're not sure, start here. And work your way until you get a little diagonal cut where you need it. I know where Ozzie's needs to be because he's already got a line there. We made it years ago. But you're going to hold this hair down and you're going to cut just a little diagonal line. Again, I've got a number 10 blade on here. It's clean. It's on his face. We want to make sure it's nice and clean. And that's my first line. Now, it looks like Ozzie in the past has probably scratched here some. It could be because he got too close here in the past. So I'm going to just go with the hair right here. You don't ever want to razor burn one on their cheeks because they'll just scratch it forever. So I'm going to go with the hair. Got to go against it right here and scoop out that ear. We're going to go with it on the cheeks. We're going to go with it on the neck. I'm going to turn him around, and I'm going to do that little diagonal cut again. Scoop inside this ear. There we go. Now, I don't like the eyebrow to go all the way to the ear. I like it to start a little bit away from the ear. I think it defines it more if it starts a little bit away from the ear. The outside of the ears, number 10, flatten it out. It's got a little gully right there. Use your finger to flatten it out so you can get the hair. Alright, then we're going to get the other ear. Ozzie's a little sensitive on his ears. He has a lot of hair inside of his ears, and he knows that I'm getting ready to pluck it out of his ears, and that's not his favorite part. So I try to be super careful because he knows it's coming. But before I pluck his ears, I have to cut the hair under the ear flap. I'm using a number 40. This area right here, you can cut really bad with a clipper or a scissors. The little flap right there goes in. It's easy to cut it. If you do cut it, immediately just put pressure on it. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Put some of your quick stop powder on it that you use for toenails. It's not going to bleed a lot, but it will bleed for a long time if you don't put pressure on it. I'm getting all this hair from the inside of his ear. I know you don't like that, Ozzie. I'm so sorry. And it's not the noise that's bothering him, and it's not that he's ticklish. It's that he knows we're fixing to pull the hair out of his ear. But we have to get that hair out. It'll cause him to have ear infections. Little critters can get down in there, and you just need to keep that ear clean. Okay. Now, with a Schnauzer and any dog that you have to shave their ears, you always want to go around the ear with your scissors and clean it up. If you don't clean it up, it looks mighty shaggy. So we're going to clean it up. Again, being careful not to cut that little flap right there. Most dogs will be still and let you do this, surprisingly. Most of them do not mind it. You can use your fingers to fluff that hair up so that you can see what you're doing. A lot of people actually do this part. A lot of people shave the ear before the bath, and then they do this trim up part when the ear is wet, because you can actually see a little bit better when it's wet. And I do that sometimes. It just depends on the dog. If it's a new dog and it doesn't act like it wants to be still, I may do it with the ear wet just so I can see it better. You could even spray water on it now and do it. Alright, all these little hairs that are not inside the ear, you can cut. All these hairs that are inside the ear, and it's obvious that they're growing inside the ear, they have to be pulled out. And the way to do that is to take some ear powder. You can use cornstarch too, but I like ear powder better. Put a little bit of it in the ear. You're going to kind of poof it around a little bit, and you're going to start. That makes the ear powder makes the hair where you can grab it. It's not waxy anymore. It makes it grippable, and you can start pulling out these little hairs. Now this part probably doesn't bother him because you're getting the hairs kind of on the outside of the ear canal. The hard part is when you have to get these longer hairs. You have to use hemostats or forceps, and you want to do a little at a time. You don't want to pull a big hunk of hair because it's going to hurt. Just like a woman learning how to pluck her eyebrows. It hurts the first few times that you do it. After a while, you get used to it. Most dogs that have been groomed as long as Ozzie don't mind this a bit. Ozzie doesn't like it because he has so much hair in his ears. Not all Schnauzers have a lot of hair in their ears. He just happens to. And if he was to ever get water down in his ear, he would get a terrible yeast infection. And then the medicine that the owner uses to try to get rid of that yeast infection wouldn't even get down there to it because all the hair would be blocking it. So you just pull this hair out a little at a time. If it gets to bothering him, I'll stop a little while, give him a break, go to the next ear. I'll go do something else, come back to it. But don't forget about it. It has to be done. The eyebrows have to be brushed or combed straight down. You're going to take your scissors and you're going to run along the side of his head. You're going to lay them on the side of his head. That way you know where to cut. And you're cutting kind of out. You're not cutting in. If you cut in, you're going to cut that eyebrow off. You're cutting straight with the head. Okay? And we can define this little line that I cut a little while ago. Now, it's better to define a line like that with thinning shears rather than scissors. You see, I got this ugly little line right there, and I don't want that. So I'm going to take thinning shears, and I'm going to blend that so you can't see it, and it blended it right back in. Anytime you make a cut that you don't like and you see the scissor mark, use your thinning shears and blend it back in. You see, Ozzie's eyes are beautiful. Now, to do this side is trickier because you actually have to turn the dog's head away from you. Now, if you're left-handed, I don't know how you do it because I'm right-handed. Lay the scissors against the cheek. Cut straight. We're cutting straight towards the tip of the nose. Now, if you have a puppy that's never had this done before, just be real careful. It's probably not going to look great the first time. It may not look great the first 10 times, but eventually that dog will sit there and let you do it. I'm going to blend this little line so that it doesn't look like a line. Now, a show Schnauzer has a big, long, beautiful, gorgeous beard that hangs down to here. All that is going to do is get into Ozzie's food and his water bowl. And he already gets little knots right there in the front from his food or his water. So we don't want him to have a huge mustache. It's orange in the front because he licks. See how he just licked? That's what makes his mustache orange. Now, I could cut all that off, but then he wouldn't have much of a mustache, so we're not going to cut it off. I am going to just even up his beard, but I'm going to do it kind of at an angle, like that. Just even it up. And even up this side. He's got a big hunk of hair right here that looks a little bushy, so I'm going to use the thinning shears and just thin it out a tiny bit. Thinning shears are great because they only take a teeny tiny bit of hair. And a Schnauzer, if you don't use the thinning shear, their beard tends to poof out like that, especially right here. And especially when they open their mouth and pant, and it just doesn't look right. So always take and just kind of thin that area out just a little bit. And after you get all done and they shake around a little bit, you may see that you need to do it some more. Ozzie's still got a few little knots right there. I'm going to use this tiny brush to try to get them out. My comb is a little too wide. I just have to pull them out. I don't want to send him home with knots. There we go. Okay. So all that looks pretty good. His eyebrow. Okay. Now, I'm going to take Ozzie's legs. We've only got a few minutes left. So we're going to comb his legs up. And see how bushy it is? And kind of shaggy. We're going to follow his own line. See how their leg, the shape of their leg going down? We're going to follow his very own shape. And again, it's going to make him look like he's in this beautiful stand just by the way we cut his hair. Make him look like he's standing for a show. And we have to do this little comb and scissor thing several times before we get it all. We just have to keep going over it, over it, over it, over it, till it is no longer bushy. Okay, this little area here, in order to make him look slim and sleek, you go up here, you're going to make it veer down that way. Okay, front leg, same thing. You're going to comb up, make sure your Schnauzer does not have any tangles in his legs. If there are tangles there, it will not be even when you cut it. Alright, you can shake it around. Hold his leg down. If for some reason he will not stand on this leg, lift this leg up. He doesn't have a choice but to stand on that leg then. Okay. Do the same thing. Make it all nice and pretty. You can do the front of the leg by combing it out like this. Shake it. Make it nice and neat. You're cutting off anything frizzy, anything bushy. You're going to lift him up. Comb his legs up on the inside and the outside. And you're going to cut away whatever is supposed to be there. Just like that. Anything that's sticking out. Now, I said a while ago I was going to show you how to make this look blended. Let me do that real fast. You put the number 7 back on. The thing is, you don't turn your back on. You take your number 7 and you're going to just do this. You're going to scoop it. And it's going to make all this hair that's pooping out lay down. Again, we don't want that hula skirt look. So in order to not have that, you gotta scoop all the hair out like that. See how that makes all that lay down nice and pretty. And then I'm gonna do a few more little odds and ends on Ozzie before we're done. So when we get through, we're gonna put this a little bandana on. We're gonna go right over left and under. Excuse me, left over right and under, and then right over left and through. That gives us a nice square knot. We're going to pull it tight. And since his bandana is pretty short, we're just going to leave it pointy. If it was longer than that, we would cut it off a little bit. We're going to pull it tight. As you can see, I got all the hair out of his ears. He still has some powder in his ears, and that's fine. The powder's not going to hurt anything. It's just going to keep it nice and dry. We're going to put some cologne on Mr. Ozzie, and he is ready to go home. You want to take a picture? Okay, now we're going to make sure this is even under here. You may have to lift him up and do it like this. May have a few little hairs hanging down. Make sure you get his tummy nice and clean because he's going to roll over on his back when he gets home and let his owner scratch his tummy. And it needs to be nice and neat. There don't need to be hairs hanging down everywhere. Okay. Now we actually cut off a good bit of this orange hair that was caused by him licking and chewing on his feet. Now this little area under his chest ideally is supposed to go down kind of in a point and a V. For some reason or another it got cut straight across. He may have had a knot, or there's no telling why we cut it straight across, and it still looks beautiful. But next time we're going to try to make him go down into a V right there. Now, the only thing left to do is cut his toenails. Ozzie has black toenails. It's hard to see where to cut them. If you look at the nail, there's an arch. There's a hook right there. If you look at it from underneath, it splits underneath right there. So you can tell where a live nail is and where a dead nail is. If you're cutting off the dead nail, you're cutting it at that hook. Have to know how to hold their feet. They're going to want to pull them away from you. This isn't their favorite part. And it's not necessarily because they've been cut before, been too short before. It's probably just because they don't want you holding their foot and squeezing it, and they don't like the sound of this little nail cutter going off. You can get a file or an emery board, file it smooth. But if you have a dog that walks around on concrete or go walking in the afternoons, it'll file off on its own. I see a few little hairs I missed. Always keep going back and looking. Especially the eyes. You want to make sure that this is just as perfect as you can get it, because that's what the owner sees when they look at their dog, because they look at those beautiful eyes and they want them to be pretty. I finished trimming up the ears. Make sure this is nice and neat. I'm going to go over his feet again with a number 40 on the bottom. For some reason, you just don't get it all the first time. And it could be because I just cut the nails and now I see even more there. Plus, you never want to send a dog home with hair all over them. It's going to get all over the owner, all over the seat of So it's a good idea